Hello. Is there no air conditioning in this one?
The air conditioning is off.
Well, the
The air
AC's
conditioning
off.
is off.
Yeah, that's
I hope that it doesn't get too hot.
Well, that's exactly the question.
Yeah.
That's too bad today. I'm not sure what it's gonna be like.
Yeah.
Heather has kindly given us a piece of senior center.
Yes, you guys are welcome to come over there.
The air conditioning is working.
I don't know where this is on and off though.
He should be, he was on a scrub call yesterday and said he was. Why don't you sit up here?
Yeah, I'll move up.
You're okay? You're-
No, I will come up. I didn't know how many people you have planned for coming in and stuff, so.
We've got, we'll have the 5 members of the committee and then we have 5 other people. And then Gordon, Heather and Molly, Peggy from Family Services. So
Yep.
there's the man.
Hello.
I see you sent out a squad email.
Did you?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I can share,
That's it? No, right. Oh, I didn't tell you, I didn't consult you.
Right, it had to get done.
Yeah.
Somebody else says.
You just forgot, Mark.
I was just thinking,
I did.
I was gonna do that. I was gonna read you the list.
No.
There's so much of it.
So she was just help if we never had. My husband is kind of such
You never had it?
There's like 1 out of 5.
I don't do a lot of reading, so that might. Really, is that so? Well, that might be the only, might be the only thing I would get, but my husband is susceptible to it. And I really don't. Touching. I barely know what it looks like.
Oh, it's very, it's very common.
Yeah.
It's like you could.
Particularly
I've
around
never
here.
seen it.
Apparently, it's getting worse because global warming increased the
My
carbon
wife
dioxide.
got it.
Oh, does it?
Yes.
Oh.
I'm really not-
That's why I have a
You
box
did a lot of
plastic gloves.
Yeah, I have the gardening gloves that go up here, but this weekend I was just. There's a lot of mulch. Just put a, I just realized source
You're logged in and see, so now it's doing this, and then sometimes it connects.
like a.
Yeah.
So, what do you?
It's like, yeah.
We started it over
Just trying to
there.
get the Zoom thing going.
You got the Zoom, you're trying to get the Zoom going.
Zoom's on, yeah, the Zoom is on. There's just sometimes, so see? And then it turns it off.
Something is probably loose.
I have, I took notes.
Well, it's probably on the input.
Oh, I can't read notes.
Did you do the whole 75 page?
I read, I did.
Most of the pages, a lot of pages. are messy.
Some of it, I would say there's some. I just can't read conservations. I mean, all this, like, unplug the fan and see if that's.
Hold on.
I mean. My comment. I don't know.
So make sure that the power's plugged in, okay? All right. Shut the fan off.
We don't have.
Yes. Oh, yeah, there's, yeah, you don't just do this, they don't just do it. It was typed here. TYCH.
Very last page.
So it's sitting like that. It's a big one. I don't know.
You have to talk. Asking source, obviously.
What's really this?
I did, yes.
I see. Oh, I just.
No signal.
Now it's back on again. Now it's off.
We need this power unit is not plugged in, I'm thinking.
That's something.
This is plugged in right here.
Here it is, here it is.
Do you want me to try to plug it?
You're getting us screen to pop up and then it went away.
This thing was pulled and moved around quite a bit. It's pretty tightly wound. I'm thinking maybe it's this HDMI cable.
Maybe that's why there's a different cable on the ground there. So we switch it out.
Yeah.
It's on now.
Oh.
Maybe you just need to stand there.
Now
Now it's staying. No, now it's off. Yeah, I know. Now I just want to flip back off.
Yeah, flip back. You don't need the second TV, right?
You just need something, yeah. Maybe the guy who's supposed to be zooming in.
We should solicit. Us. Yeah.
It's kind of, it was flashing before I did anything too. Like the TV was flashing before I. Yep. Now we went to no signal.
Power into the TV.
Then you would need that one to plug over here. Okay. Oh wait, your device, it just said something. That's new.
I don't know how to change the HDMI one.
Is there an input button on the side?
No, I know.
Okay.
Not over, I'm not trying.
Wait, whatever you just did.
Sorry. Let's see if that does it. I think we're okay. Something's up with this box.
Okay. So maybe we just leave it pointed this direction exactly like this.
Is this good?
I think so. I think so.
Okay, no one else is on.
Yeah, right.
That's what happened, you keep moving around.
All I got is the temperature.
It should, it should.
Oh, it should. But it'll be all good when it's done.
Very good.
You
Okay.
know where to find me.
I 100% do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Technological victory has been achieved. So let's call the meeting order. It's 4:07 PM. Approval of meetings of May 1. There was some edits that made after some round. Does anyone have any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Thanks so much. Oh, I didn't. I got it. I think I did. Yeah. I can make a motion to.
Okay. So I hear a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Second, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to ask Ben Whedon to give us a little conversation about your experience in living with the affordable housing insurance as a developer.
Sure.
Why don't you give us a little background?
I'll give you a little background on me. First, I'm very casual, so if you have questions, especially with a small group, interrupt me, ask questions. I'm here to help you know a little bit about
Just raise
what.
our hand or we just.
No, whatever you want, just interrupt, I don't care. So it's very casual. My name's Bob Wiedemann, I'm a builder from Wallingford, I grew up in North Branford. So I'm a little bit familiar with Madison, done some work down here on some additions, and probably a couple homes over the years, not a lot. But I'm familiar with the town and you know, quite honestly, it's a great town, and it's probably one of the things that makes it difficult for affordable housing, because it's such a great town. It can play against you a little bit. I've been building primarily single-family homes, some multi-family, but primarily I'm a single-family builder, and I've done that for almost 40 years. And more recently, I've been trying to get more into the affordable housing realm, just because I think there's such a need, and I feel like it's what I was put here to do, was to build housing. And if I can do a little bit towards affordable housing in the later stages of my career, I want to try to do that. I've been involved with SCROG, which I think all you folks have been also with you know, they're trying to promote with affordable housing. And so I'm doing that in Wallingford on their housing committee. We actually have a meeting at their library, just in a community conversation, like I assume you guys have been having with Ben Fink and.
They have an affordable housing committee in Wallingford.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so, you know, very similar to what you guys are doing. I spoke about a month ago in Guilford, same topic, just kind of giving you a developer's perspective on what works, what doesn't work, what you can do to help make our lives easier and encourage more housing. I talked about a year ago in the town of Guilford, and they were really pushing for the ADU units back then, and they wanted to kind of get my feeling on that. I don't know a lot about where you are in the process, so I'm just going to talk generally. I did look at your affordability plan, but I just want to kind of see, you know, kind of where you were from that standpoint and give you some thoughts on that. But if there's aspects, I didn't redo your zoning rates, other than I wanted to make sure there are ADUs in it, and they were. And
They are, they've been in for years.
Yeah.
apparently, yeah.
yeah, so I mean, that's a great start itself. And as you guys know, there's limitation because of lack of sewer. I mean, it's probably your biggest obstacle when you're dealing with multifamily, any kind of density is very directed towards where soils all lost septic system. That's what you're going to deal with. I think the affordability plan, if I remember, kind of, you know, want you to be the walkable idea downtown and the train station, things like that.
Preference.
Sorry?
Preference.
Yeah, preference,
Yeah.
exactly. What I guess my first thought would be, don't discourage it anywhere. Because in my opinion, you're not going to be overrun with housing, affordable housing of any sort. You just said, build it anywhere you want. There aren't going to be developers coming from all corners of the world to try to build more housing here than you want. It's just not going to happen. And a lot of that has to do with the soils that are going to dictate where we can do it. So I don't want you to be afraid of affordable housing. From a developer standpoint, my biggest thing is I want to be welcome. I don't want to come here with a 830G application and force something down your throat that you don't want. And I think that's true of 98% of developers. There are a few, and you hear more about it down in Fairfield County because of land costs where they come in and they try to force things in. And sometimes it's not even projects they really want approved, but they want to use it as a negotiation tool. So they'll propose 250 units on a 5-acre parcel, where all they really want to build are 50 houses, but they'll do it that way. And what I always suggest to towns, even in those areas, is call their bluff and approval, force them to build the 250 units, because they probably won't actually do it. And they're just using the tools. I don't think I don't expect you'll see or have seen that. I don't know that for the fact.
Nothing like that.
But usually you won't see that, because again, with lack of sewer, nobody can come in and force some stupid number of units on a small parcel in a location that doesn't make sense.
But when you're looking at building affordable housing, you say you're sort of switching, looking that way. Are you looking at it more along the lines of 1/3 affordable, 2/3?
Great question. So when I talk about affordable housing, I'm a for-profit builder. So I'm looking at it from that perspective. What makes economic sense for us to do it without having to look for state, federal, town resources, money generally to drive the cost of housing down. So we're trying to do this at market rate for the majority of it, but with some affordable units as well. So I have done a few projects under 830G. The other thing I look at when I'm looking at a project is, does it fit in the neighborhood I'm doing it in? If I'm gonna come near your downtown area, the density might look different than if I'm gonna go up to North Madison to a parcel near North Madison Circle and say, I want to build some affordable housing there. It's gonna look different. That's just what I do. And I think most people want to make it fit in. Last thing I want you to do is drive through a neighborhood after I built it and be able to pick out that, oh, that's an affordable housing project, because we did poor quality craftsmanship, the designs were terrible, they don't look appropriate for the location, that sort of thing. I want them to fit in. So I built townhouses. Some of these are in Wallingford, so we have sewer, but I've done townhouse projects adjacent to a gas station, behind a gas station. Makes sense. I'm doing some duplexes right now that I'm just finishing up that were predominantly in a single-family neighborhood, but happened to be adjacent to a firehouse. And it was sort of a transition between that commercial use of a firehouse and all the single-family residential. And I wanted these small houses, they were all 2 families, stacked units, just like you see a typical 2-family house in pick a town, Connecticut. And that's kind of what they look like. But if you drive by without noticing too much that there are 2 front doors, you wouldn't know that they were not single-family houses with a 1-car garage and a nice, cute little house.
Didn't you post us on our bus tour?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, so if you were on a bus
Yeah.
tour, that Sprague did, back in the fall, I think.
Yeah, it was a while ago, but what you say is absolutely right. These are very, very attractive.
Yep.
Right, developments.
Yep.
And you made that very clear when you talked to us at that point.
That's correct. Yep, so we visited my townhouse community right on 150 Woodhouse Avenue. And we built all the units to look exactly the same. Well, that's why I just do it. So you can't say, here's the affordable ones over here, and here's the market rate ones over here. They're all identical. You can't tell them apart. And I do that intentionally because a lot of what I do is for rent right now. And I want to be able to put tenants in my rental units and move them around. So I don't have dedicated units. The for sale product, under 830G, you typically have to dedicate certain units to be affordable. They're deed restricted to be affordable if they're for sale, because the future buyer also needs to keep that restriction ongoing for 40 years. For rental, we have the same requirement, but I want to be able to move people. Because what I don't want to have happen is have a tenant move into a unit, and then next year they have to requalify every year. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around, and I do this a lot, so stop me if I go off track. For sale, they have to qualify one time the day they buy the unit. They could get a huge raise, they could get married and have double incomes all of a sudden. They don't have to move out of their unit. It's restricted for that one day. They have to qualify, and that's it. For rent, we have to requalify some every single year. So what can happen is you get a tenant that's perfectly well qualified today. Something changes in their life. They get married, they get a job promotion, they get a raise, whatever it is, they don't qualify. The last thing I want to do is ask that person, especially if they're a good quality tenant, have to leave. You can no longer live in your apartment. Good for you. You got to improve yourself, and now you have to leave and go find another place to live. It doesn't make any sense. So what I've been able to work with the towns that I've done this in is said, if we have a tenant that's qualified but then becomes unqualified, rather than asking them to move, we'll make the next available unit affordable. So that person that might be in a 60 or 80%, whether it's 60 or 80, they may go from 60 to 80 or 80 to 100% of market rate unit. They're allowed to stay. We just make the next unit affordable. So there may be times when I'm not exactly in compliance.
Well, what do you do with that in Wallingford? Use a Wallingford example. Who in the town is we were
So-
contacted.
So zoning.
Or
we
you
put-
call somebody up and say, this is not no longer affordable, you know.
No,
we're gonna make it
well,
mandatory.
we're, in theory, everybody has an affordability plan. With your 830G application, you have an affordability plan that spells out how it's supposed to function, how it's gonna run, and the town approves it, and they're, in theory, supposed to regulate.
Right.
I will tell you that most towns do not regulate it at all. Some will ask you on an annual basis to give us a report. I have not been asked for a report in 3 years.
Really? Okay.
So there's,
Well, it's a staffing issue.
Yeah,
They just
and
don't have the
that's really
staffing
what
and
it is.
resources to cover this.
Yep.
It's tough.
And your units have an administrator for this? You have a
we have a
management
third-party
company that-
administrator that helps us qualify our tenants to
Okay.
make sure they meet the requirements. We do a preliminary evaluation, kind of a two-step process. We do a preliminary evaluation, we treat everyone just as if they were coming in as market rate. We let them know that there's an affordable component in here, and if you qualify, you can get a reduced rent. And if they feel they can, we ask them for their information, we send it to the third-party administrator who then oversees that. So if we were requested for the report to a town, we could provide it in a short period of time. But we have not had to do that today.
Right.
Maybe it's because they know us and they trust us, maybe it's
Maybe
a staffing issue.
Have somebody that does it.
I can tell you now, where does that land, right?
Yeah, and we don't have a lot of units. I have 11 in that one unit project, and I've got 3 more coming on, just in the process of coming online. So I have 14 out of my 60 or so units that I manage.
So you generally focused on smaller.
Yes.
You're not looking at
Yeah.
30 or 40.
And that's, I should clarify that. I'm a small volume builder. When I built houses, I never built more than 25 houses a year, typically 10 to 15. Now that I'm doing multifamily, my goal is to show people that they can do this on a small scale. My current project is 10 units on 1 acre land.
Mhm.
I want to show people they can do it. They don't have to come in and propose hundreds of units and change the outlook of the town or even the neighborhood. That these can fit in appropriately, and that small guys can do it. Because a lot of times, the only people that are doing this are large scale developers that have big war chests to do this kind of project, that have the time to get into it. And I want to show people that you don't have to be that large scale builder to do it. But I think for a lot of towns, like Madison, like a lot of towns that don't have municipal utilities, it's a great way to do it, because 10 units is much less offensive to a lot of people than 100 unit project, no matter where it is.
Well, it's also practicality.
Yeah, and a lot of it's infill, so we're trying to find small, the site that I'm doing now it's an old 2-family farmhouse. Like you probably got dozens of them here, that was dilapidated and unoccupied for a period of time. And we knocked that down and could replace it with a 2-family, but we chose to go a little more density. Again, I had sewer available there and water, so it's a different aspect. But that's why I chose to do that, so that's kind of been my goal, is to try to show people, not only do stuff that makes sense, but also show other builder developers. I got an open house at my project, my newest project, with 10 units tomorrow afternoon from a multifamily council with the Home Builders Association. And I'm hoping that we get 40 or 50 people that are kind of showing what I'm doing, and how they can maybe do that. And I'm very open to sharing everything from my financials to what the approval process was and how we did that thing. I'm an open book. So if you have questions about that, or now or in the future, let me know. I'm not opposed to telling you all the dirty laundry, whatever it is, I'm willing to share.
When you talk about infill, so you're looking at pretty small pieces of land,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
half an acre, that
Yeah.
kind of thing, as well as.
And it might
larger
be
areas.
slightly larger acreage here because we have to have septic. So getting back to the reason I suggested at the beginning is don't limit yourself to certain areas of town. I would say let the engineering dictate where it can fit, where it works, because you're so limited in the areas that have proper soils that can support a septic system for 10 or 20 or 30 bedrooms, which is what you need to do, even a small scale project. That I would much rather see you say, put it anywhere you want, come in with a project and let us decide if it's appropriate from a density standpoint and everything else. And then guys can look around and find sites that make sense for that. And I don't think like I said, I don't think you're gonna get overrun with applications tomorrow. Oh my God, where do these people all come from there?
You can always say no anyway.
Yeah, you can always say no, you have controls.
Yeah.
But when I talk about affordable housing, I'm always talking, in my mind, 830G, market rate, mix of market rate, affordable. I'm also on the Wallingford Housing Authority, so I also understand a little bit, and I thought I knew everything about housing until I got on the Housing Authority. And I realized there are people that live in this state that live on incomes that you and I would be shocked at, people that make $20,000 a year and live, and I'm like, I don't think I can get through a month on $20,000 a year. It's just the way life is here. I was shocked when I first got on. And that's a whole different program that I'm not here expected to talk about. Well, so when I talk affordable, I'm talking about 60-80% median income, people that are making $50,000 to $80,000.
Yep.
And it's one thing, I want to talk a little bit about your affordable plan, and you guys all know it and read it, but I just pick out some highlights that I think are really interesting. And some of it's specific to Madison because of the mentality of being a very affluent town. And so I'll just start. So, I mean, you guys know these facts, and this is right out of your plan. 90% of your housing is single family. Very, very limited amount of multifamily housing. Most of the housing was built between, especially there's a big boom between the late 70s and early 90s, when you're building 100 to 150 houses a year in town. And now more recently, you're building 10 to 25 houses a year. So, I mean, and that's partly just due to the land areas just aren't available. Parcels are smaller that we're trying to develop and so forth. But that plays to the fact that a lot of the people, and it's also all owner occupied. So what I also found really interesting is a lot of the questions at the end of your plan are going to surveying people, and a lot of people don't think there's a problem. The problem is that they don't have a problem. They already have a house in town. They don't see the problem until they age out of the house that they're in. It's too large, and they can't afford it, or they can't do stairs because 90% of what we've built for the last 50 years are two-story colonials. Typical house in Connecticut was probably in the 2,000, 2,200 square foot range. In Madison, again, the problem here being affluent is those houses were 2,500 to 3,500 square feet. It makes it even more difficult for people to afford, to maintain, to take care of, and just live in those kind of houses. And we haven't built houses for seniors. And I'm sure you're already starting to see that problem. And that's what we're seeing in every town that I talk to. They're saying, what are the problems? And again, it's affordability, which is statewide, and it's senior housing. That we just don't have the type of housing for us to age in place. We love our town, we love our school system, we love our churches, we have all our friends here, don't want to leave town, but I can't live in the house that I'm in today. It doesn't work.
And well, that's exactly, I mean, we've had a couple of public conversations, and that's the one issue we really want to get across to people is that we're changing because people are getting older. There's some places that they really don't want to live in, but don't have the opportunity.
We've been thinking all the time too about teachers, retail workers, firemen, policemen, people that have to travel 10, 15 miles or more just to work in the town that can't afford to live here. So we're pretty attuned to that particular issue. And we've got great support from the whole town government. I need to ask you though, you have a great association with the Wallingford town government, it sounds like, and have had easy conversations with them about, let's say, reasonable development plans. Okay, well, we're kind of in the same boat, but we have no money. So does the town of Wallingford have an affordable housing trust fund?
No, they don't.
Have they contributed monies to your development plans, either through tax rebates, tax advantages, any of that sort of thing?
No, I've never asked. And we, as this housing conversation group that we have ongoing with affordable, we talked to the council and the mayor and said, at this point, all we're asking for is support. We're not looking for handouts, we're not looking for money, anything like that. And they're like, nobody comes before the council and doesn't ask for money. So like we're here.
Suspicious.
Yeah, they look at you cross-eyed, like, what do you mean? Why are you here then?
There's a lot of towns in Connecticut that have reasonably large affordable housing trust funds. One of our objectives is to establish a fund like that. It helps with a lot of things. It helps with the developer, it helps with land acquisition. Okay. And it helps with all of the machinations that you have to go through, to get to a development plan on a parcel of land that you probably can't afford.
So your financing is all commercial terms.
Yes. Yeah, so we do this all private financing, we're not looking for any.
Jane?
I should take this back to, I'm a little unclear as to the business model. So questions are, who owns the land? Is that yours or is it the town's? What about from the management standpoint, you said you are outsourcing it to third parties. Once it's built, it's managed by third parties who then do a bunch of reporting on, I suspect, and probably provide that data back to the town if asked. So I'm kind of, can you just sort of run through the mechanics of your specialty? Because everyone that comes in here seems to have a different
Yeah.
thought
Okay.
process. And why not go for state or federal funds? Or is it just not your bailiwick?
Yeah, so I want to be able, my goal is to show people that you can do this without state and federal money, because it's only so much money, whether we get it, ask local government for it, whether we ask state money for, or to provide money, or even federal money, my mind, well, they don't think there's anything. That's a whole other story. That there aren't unlimited funds for that. So I want to try to do this without requiring or relying on any outside source of money other than market rate financing. We do own all the properties that we built under A30G or project. I've got a current project in the approval process, which is going to be my first A30G for sale product, which is only 13 homes with 4 affordable units. And there is a question, partly because of interest rates, whether or not those, if I can make those 4 units for sale, or I'm going to have to rent them in order to make the numbers work. Because as interest rate, one of the problems with A30G is it's all based on the 30% median income being dedicated towards housing. And the problem with that, when interest rates go up, it drives the sale price of the house down, which makes it a real problem. And it not only makes it a problem for us when we're building it, it makes it a problem for a homeowner who down the road may want to move out of that house to upgrade their situation, or they outgrow the house. And they're not able to because they're locked into this house that they can't sell. So
Maybe I misunderstood you. You're saying you're calling it an 830G application. I thought I had written down, that you want to be friendly, not 830G. Are you using the word, the term 830G to talk about the fact that it's affordable with income limits, or do you mean you're actually coming in?
no, I'm actually using an A30G
You are coming in that
application,
way.
but I look at it as a friendly application. I work with the commissions to come up with a design and a product that they find appropriate. But we do have site plans that are developed under A30G, so we are not legally required to comply with all of the zoning regulations, other than how they affect health and safety. Those are the issues that we deal with.
How is Wallingford respond to what?
If you had asked me a year ago, I'd say they're terribly friendly, they're great to work with. My current project is 13 units, I've got neighbor opposition, and I've got town staff that are less than supportive. We can talk about that. I want to just get back to the other questions. I'm a little unclear. We use a third-party administrator to manage the affordability component to help qualify our tenants. So we don't do that in-house, because it's a very technical thing where you have to know not only their income, but all their sources of income, their assets. It's a very complicated thing and kind of a specialized thing. So we use a third party for that, but we actually self-manage all our property. My daughter actually does all of our property management. So she will interact with every applicant, take applications, show them units. If they become tenants, then she's the person you call if you have any concerns, problems, things of that nature. So the third party is only on the administration of the affordability requirements.
Your daughter be willing to meet with us, I'm sure. She was very, very kind.
Yes.
You know, you hosted us on that
Yep.
tour.
Jane, is that?
Just for Erin's benefit, one of the questions.
Oh, here is Erin. I didn't
One
see
of the
her.
questions was, is there a housing guru in Wallingford? No. So that third party it has the reports available if the town wants to access them at any point in time.
And they're a commercial enterprise, right? I mean, these are
Yes.
guys that do this.
Yep.
And that, right, that depends on the regulatory.
Yes,
Just, I was curious, the project that's going up by Windermere, Wellington,
Oh,
I see on the big sign that it's being funded by Hope.
well, the organizer is the Hope Partnership, which is a not-for-profit organization. We are not the builders, they're the administrators down the road.
So they are the administrator.
And help with funding too.
Well,
Part of the consortium of the project. And that includes public financing, that also includes maintenance. The town has granted tax abatements on that project, and it's also 90% affordable. So we actually have nothing in town that Hopefully that qualifies for that.
And that-
Different mix of, including state financing, things like that. Grants. Not to relate with the A3G thing, but like the applications that you said were easier. Is there one item that you could tell me what that would be the reason that you would have to use an 830 application versus just being able to come in and say, here's this project I'd like to build, and by the way, we're gonna have X amount of affordable.
Great question. Because the town would prefer not to use 830G
Yes.
because they do lose a lot of control. So we've had conversations with the town planner about coming up with some regulations that would allow for density without having to wait 830G. Unfortunately, it's sort of the only game in town right now. I'm not a big fan or supporter of 830G, other than that it's the only option available in most locations.
I was trying to get at what is the main issue that's making 830G, you have to pull the plug that. Is it the fact that the regulations don't allow for density? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
That's their biggest.
So for instance, I'm doing the 10 units, I would have had a single two-family house. This 13-unit project I'm going through approvals on now, I'm trying to put 13 houses on a 3.5-acre parcel that would only support 3 houses on the current zoning reg.
Okay, so it's the amount of, that you want to put on a particular piece of land. Is it necessarily where it's located in the town, or is it mostly density on a piece of land?
Zoning.
A little bit of both. I mean, the zoning obviously dictates
Yeah.
what the normal density would be. And again, we're dealing in a town with water and sewer,
Yeah.
all these private water and sewer, so. But I fight with them all the time. There's no, from an engineering standpoint, there's no reason that there should be any lot larger than 1/4 acre from an engineering standpoint. And they look at me like I got 3 heads because they're like, we have 1 acre zoning. I'm like, yeah, you have 1 acre zoning with water and sewer available. How wasteful of land is that? I said, I built about 600 homes and 300 of those were in Wallingford. And I explained to them that if I built my 300 homes on 1/4 acre lots, we'd have 250 acres of open space in town today that we don't have today because I spread these houses all over 1 acre lots typically. And how wasteful. We'd have a whole farm still in operation today. And everybody wants farmland, preserve farmland. And you spend money preserving farmland. And you could have done it for free if you just put the reasonable density. Now, again, I'm talking about where sewer's available. It's a different conversation here with water, without the sewer. But those are some of the struggles we have with the perception. And you go to other parts of the country, you go to California, you go to Florida, you go to Arizona, 1/4 acre lots are very typical. And here, 1 acre lots are very typical. How wasteful. And then you complain about
Or
sprawl.
larger. Tweet, Alex.
Yeah, so on that point, so I like where you were going with that, and I like the idea of preserving land. But what's to prevent someone else from just developing on all that land that you saved? So essentially that works if you have a moratorium on development. But otherwise, you just have increase of developed land.
Very easy, just deed restrictions. So if I were to take a 50-acre parcel and say, allow me to build on 25 acres, let me use the 25 acres that have, in this case, the best soils for my septic system. I'm not gonna build on top of the rock out property, the steep slopes or the wetlands, which are already limited in a lot of those areas anyway. But let me condense that so I can reduce my development cost, because now I'm not building 8,000 feet of road, I'm gonna build 800 feet of road. So I can reduce my costs that way, condense the property, leave more open space, preserve.
Assuming you own the land, but in this
Yeah.
case, say you just buy an acre and you build 4 houses instead of 1. And so we're saving land, but you didn't buy 50 acres. So that mechanism, it seems like a mechanism of a moratorium, like should be tied into this if you truly were after preserving land, because otherwise, all that land, 250 lots multiplied by 4, so
Right.
if you bought the farm, it makes sense, but no one's pressuring you to buy a farm
Yeah,
and not build on it.
no, that's a good point. You'd have to work that out, that's why I'd like to be able to negotiate with the town on a project by project basis, what makes sense? What am I trying to accomplish and what is the town trying to accomplish and what's good, what's best for the neighborhood? But affordable housing is, in my mind, a very necessary part of the discussion. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people just don't seem to think there's a problem in town. Because they already have it. And it's
Well,
not
they don't
not
identify,
until,
they don't identify as a problem. I mean,
Yeah.
They have a problem, but they
Yeah.
don't necessarily identify
Yeah.
as.
no, obviously, the people that answered the questions in the survey were maybe more attuned to affordable housing. Yeah, I'm not sure,
They
if you know,
agreed to do the
it's
survey.
not, maybe it's not a broad enough sample of everyone in town and what they really think about it. But there are a lot of people that don't see the problem until they themselves have a problem with their existing house, or they have a family, a parent that ages, and then all of a sudden their house doesn't work for them anymore, and they're having to go, I can't live in Madison anymore, I gotta go live in Branford. It's the only place I can find
Exactly.
a one-bedroom, one-story ranch style house. So I'm living in Branford, even though all my friends, everything I know is in Madison, but I can't do it, I gotta go to Branford.
Exactly.
That happens. Or your kids graduate high school, or they graduate college, they love to come back here, and they go, yeah, come back here. And when you start a job making 50 grand a year, that someday will be 100, but today it's 50. And buy $1 million house, because there's no other option.
Yeah, that works.
Doesn't work.
That benefits me.
So they're also in Madison, or they go to some other place like Boston, New York, and then they start liking it, and they never come back,
Which is what happens.
which happens a lot.
Have you worked on any ADUs?
I have done some. We're in construction of one and we're paving today. We're working on another one that will start hopefully within the next.
Little bitty houses or additions? to the existing
These,
houses?
most of these are additions, but we built a neighborhood, about 5 years ago, which I think there were 2 ADU units that we built as part of new construction.
You know,
Separate from the main house.
What is the square
Yeah,
footage? though?
They
What's this-
were, connected to the house. At the time, these were both in Wallingford, they were required to be attached. Some towns are very fearful of having detached units, and somehow they think they're gonna end up with 2 houses on one lot, and that they lose control of that.
if you look at small houses online, it's just a plethora of possibilities and designs. There's a million designs of small houses that would be perfect on.
Yeah, I think that's really one of the best opportunities for you in Madison would be ADU, because you're typically only adding 1 bedroom to a septic system, so if the septic system is not large enough to support it now, it's usually not a long, big stretch to get a little larger septic system to comply with the health code and allow an additional unit. And similarly, a lot of towns think that if you open the door on ADUs, they're gonna be everywhere. I haven't seen it happen anywhere. I mean, you'll build 10 a year. If you build 10 a year in Madison,
You wouldn't find.
that would be over the top. I can't even think you could do that. And you wouldn't even know where they are. If they're properly designed, yes, controls, and I think your system is pretty easy from what I could read in the regulation. It wasn't really, in my mind, a little bit clear. I want to talk to the planner about exactly what the process is. But it seemed to be fairly open to allowing that. There was some limitation on the square footage, which is understandable, that you like one person still have an ownership interest in living in one of the locations, so it doesn't turn into a multifamily with an absentee landlord. Makes sense.
Yeah. We just haven't had a lot of them despite the
Yeah.
fact it's been existing for 20, 30 years.
Yeah. So, I think that's a great opportunity for you here.
Yeah. Bob, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. If I could
Have we left anything out that we ought to know?
I just had like 2 key takeaways I thought about as reading your affordability plan. One was maybe just helping to educate, because I looked at some of the questions, and a lot of people just didn't realize the problem or the depth of the problem, and they don't know it until it affects them, is education. And I'm preaching to the choir in this room. You guys are all involved. But educating people on what it is, and it's not all, everybody thinks, my first reaction when I talk to somebody is they think you're bringing in less desirable opportunities to the town. We're gonna have a bunch of homeless people in here, drug addicts, and you name it. And I'm not talking about that. It's people that you deal with every day. Whoever you bought your coffee from this morning doesn't make enough money to live in this town. So that person,
It's education.
it's firemen, it's policemen, it's your paralegal in your school system. Go down the list of jobs that can't afford to live here. And now those are people, when I talk affordable, I'm thinking of taking care of those people. There's a whole nother conversation, as I said, when you talk about your housing authority, where you're getting state, federal money and subsidies and things like that, that deal with a whole different price point that I'm not really trying to address here. The other thing I'll tell you is, you'll all sit in this room, and I assume everybody here is supportive of affordable housing. Well, the next time I'm standing in front of your planning and zoning commission with an affordable housing application, I will likely be the only guy in the room that thinks affordable housing is important. That you guys are all gonna have something else
I
to
think
do.
you're speaking from experience.
Yes, I am.
I gotta go to
And please don't take this in a negative way. I'm trying to be very constructive, but that's typically what I see. Is I'm the only guy in the room standing here telling you that we need this and why my application is so wonderful. And I've talked to the same housing group that we have in Wallingford. I said, I need you to come out. And it's not necessarily to come out and support my application and know from a technical standpoint that it makes sense. But to come out and just say, listen, commissioners, we need this housing. And you need to support housing of this type. It doesn't mean that I'm not supporting this application as it is. I don't know the technical aspects of it, but we need affordable housing. Please help them make that happen. And then the last thing I'll leave you with is regulators. Besides the commissions, regulators have to be careful how you phrase this.
Our town planner is sitting over there, so.
No, that's okay. This is great. Regulators get paid on Friday whether they do anything or not. Okay, now this is.
That's great to know.
This is. And this is somewhat hard.
Plans for the summer.
And so this is very generic in nature,
Okay,
but
not anybody in this.
no, of course not. But when I say that is, there's no sense of urgency. People have asked me, how long does it take you to build a house? And if I tell you it's gonna take me 4 months to build your house, do you really mean it, or is it gonna turn into 8 months? I said, I don't get paid till I finish your house. I've got strong motivation to finish my house. Quite honestly, I've got a much stronger desire to finish a project and move to the next one than you do. And that's just the reality of our jobs, our responsibilities, is there's less urgency for someone. I've got a project, like I said, I was gonna tell you a little bit about some of the stuff I'm doing now. I got one now where Public Works Department won't let me cut a tree down because it's gonna be in the middle of my road. My access road for my new area, I've got my wetland approval, and they won't let me cut the tree down. So I've already cleared the lot, I need to haul the chips out and stump the lot while I'm getting my zoning approval. No, until you have zoning approval, I can't let you cut the tree down. So I said, well, that's great for you, and I understand because my application may never be approved. But the problem is, my tree guy's there now to cut that one tree, and it's a 24-inch white pine tree, ugliest tree you ever saw, of no value to anyone, but it's on town property, and I can't touch it. So I said, I can cut it now while my tree guy's here, it costs me $0. When I bring the guy back in 3 months, hopefully when I get my zoning approval, I'll spend $4,000 getting that tree cut down. Doesn't matter to him. My public works director does not care. The rules say, no tree until you get all your approvals in place. And then we post it for 5 days, which is very typical, and make sure the neighbors don't complain about it, that it's a great specimen tree that should be somehow protected. Yeah.
But I will say
But I mean,
that.
those are that's just one example of a simple thing that they put roadblocks up that they don't realize.
That exists.
I told you, I have one last thing. My wetland application, which I have 3.5 acre parcel with no wetlands on. I have no wetlands within 800 feet of my property. So in my mind, no impact on wetlands. I should have been approved administratively. The commission, because there was some neighbor opposition, decided we should have a hearing. Well, then the neighbors come out and decide to put in a petition, which requires a public hearing. So now we notify the neighbors we're having a public hearing for a wetland application, which has no impact. And we spent 5 months going through a wetland process, where it's an application I submitted on January 5th, and I just got my approval in May. It took so long that I had to withdraw my zoning application because their time frame had run out to act on my application. So now, Friday, I will resubmit zoning and hopefully have my approval sometime later this year. Now, I'm a small guy. I have one project at a time typically going. So the project I was planning to do this year is not going this year.
Next year.
So those are some of the stories, and I bring that up because the timing, the cost, those meetings I determined between my lawyer and my engineer, and now I brought a traffic guy. I got 13 lots, I need a traffic engineer.
Of course.
Okay, for 13 lots. In a 3-way intersection, so it's not like you're all going in, it's not the end of a cul-de-sac where everybody's driving out. So I'm into this project for $80,000 of approval costs, and I haven't started my zoning application yet. And I'm trying to
I
get
think we
13 lots,
understand that.
of which 4 are affordable. So I just bring it up because that's why I need you to come to the commissions and say, please help this process along. What you can do, and it happens typically, if you have economic, I don't get an economic development commission, for example. If someone wants to come to town with 100 jobs and they want to bring their factory here, everybody in the building is going to meet with them and say, what can we do to help you get here? They don't do that with a zoning application. And what I'm encouraging our town planner to do, with the help of the Economic Development Commission, because they suggested it, was we should have the same process. I come to town with an idea, rather than me talking to the planner and then finding out later that the wetlands officer has a problem, or public works has a problem, or the town engineer has a problem. Let's get everybody in the room and figure out what we're trying to accomplish, and then what are your individual problems? Let's try to address them all. That's what would happen in economic development. Get that factory here, we'll make things happen. But we don't put the same level of effort in typically, and you may, and again, I'm talking generically. But if you could do that, that makes me much more interested in coming here to work and try to bring affordable housing. And I say that me as a for-profit developer. So those are the things that you can do to really help the process. And again, without, I mean,
It's a very
there's
good
no
idea.
more staff time.
Good idea for us to come and have a representation.
Yeah. So anything you can do to help the process
Yeah.
helps the whole thing happen.
Right. I mean, we're an advisory group, we don't do anything
Absolutely.
except.
Yeah.
advise. So,
And again,
I think the things that you bring up are things that we just generally, whether it's a for-profit, no affordable component or anything.
Right.
You know, we are working on making that process more transparent too, because I think that's the other complaint we get a lot, like, well, I didn't know I had to do that and then do that. And well, you should have hired an expert, you should have an attorney involved, you know, so the costs start accumulating. And you're professional, so you're more experienced, so you know, like, about all the different commissions and all the traffic force and the, you know, a lot of people come in and they don't understand that. That's involved. So,
and every town is different. So, you know, we don't,
Yeah.
even though I've done it a long time. I come to Madison, would be the first time I'd be before the planning and zoning commission, so I don't know the formality of it. Who I need to get my
well,
blessings
and
from.
we're coastal, so just that's a whole
Yes,
other element
yes,
of, so, you know, so you have a whole other process.
Can I ask one more?
Sure.
We have a couple of religious organizations in town that own considerable property. And I'm just wondering, have you dealt with possibilities of approaching them for using part of their land for development? If you do, I'll just talk to you later or offline or anything.
I have not talked to religious organizations, but we have Galen Hospital in Wallingford, and they have a large parcel of land that they're thinking that it's never gonna be part of their overall plan for the hospital activities they're doing. So there may be an opportunity.
So
there
that's
down the road.
typical.
So I think that, that would be the type of thing, and that might be some of the gentlemen in the back said, where maybe we're not gonna develop the whole thing, and they don't want the whole thing developed, but is there a parcel that makes sense to develop? And they might put a restriction on the rest so that other parts won't be developed, so.
We'd love to
that's what
pursue
we're
that,
saying.
because it's, the tax situation is just kind of favorable. I won't take any time.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you very much for your time.
I think we're in a hurry, but quickly.
We're not in a hurry to stop you from speaking, Alex.
Thank you. To make, to streamline costs and to make stuff affordable, are you still able to integrate aesthetics into what you're doing? So as someone drives by, I see often you go to the cheapest sort of materials, and that's where costs, does an experienced developer like you have the?
My personal thing is, especially when I'm doing it for rent, I'm a long-term holder, so I want something that's gonna be durable, that's not gonna wear out great. I'm sure there are developers that don't care about that, but they probably wouldn't care about that in anything they build, regardless of whether it's an affordable component or they're doing rentals or they're doing it for sale. Everybody's got their own level of quality, but for me, as I mentioned earlier, we build every unit that looks the same quality, so we're using the same stuff. If you hired me to build $1 million house for you, or I'm building a $200,000 condo or $150,000 affordable unit, I'm using the same contractors, the same materials, the same suppliers, the same process. And you should, in my opinion, you can't tell them apart. They might be smaller. I shouldn't say that. There could be little things that we look at to try to save money, like details. On $1 million house, there's gonna be more moldings and trim work and quality. The front door is gonna be fancier than the front door I put on a $200,000 apartment. reality.
But not, I think what your house is saying is that within a unit where you have 4 or 5 units, they're distinguishable.
They should look all the same.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate it. Yeah.
You have my contact information.
We
If you
do.
have questions,
I will make
you know,
sure.
please share it with anyone. I'm available anytime, by phone, cell, email.
Aaron will probably call you
I have a
something about
passion
how
for
to work
affordable
out
housing.
all week.
So thank you for listening to me. I
Right.
really ramble on about this. So I appreciate what you guys are all doing. And I don't mean to pick on town planners or engineers or anybody else in town. Everybody has a responsibility and need to do the right thing. So thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming in.
If you don't need me anymore, I'm gonna run out.
Yeah, you can go.
Should I get to my
Take
next
care,
meeting?
Bob. I'll see you in an hour.
Again at 6:30.
There's Ben saying hello.
saying
Hey, Ben.
Hey, hey, see you in an
I'm
hour.
gonna see you in an hour and a half.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah, I've got another meeting
Well, that's a
tonight.
lot of.
How's the conversation at 6:30 at the
know.
library in Wallingford, so.
Aaron, do you know if that video got rejiggered? Remember the one that Scrum did and then they had to take it down? Do you know if that?
Not done
I
yet.
don't
Yeah,
know.
They
right now.
posted
Did
it
it
back
get
up, but that was,
redone?
Yeah.
that was a good video.
It is up. That video, that video is up.
The video is up. He says
It
the
is
video is
up,
up.
okay. I was just gonna,
I think
let
just
folks
recently.
know that
I think
Bob's units were on that video. So if we don't have that on our affordable housing page already, maybe we can get that loaded up on there because, I know the tour, the video tour, your units were on there. So, we give, some good examples of what everything looked like.
Thank you very much. I'll give you my card just so you have it right there with my cell and everything on there. So call if you guys need it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Great talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Did you see the work? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You wanna hang around or?
I have to. Hear my mind, so, but, thank you for inviting. And the question is, do you think that we having that, community conversation again soon? Or are you gonna do that?
Yes, we're gonna talk about that.
Okay.
I mean, we have no schedule.
Yeah,
But that's
okay.
one thing we wanna do today, is talk.
Oh, good.
I think we came to the conclusion that we got a little ahead of ourselves by trying to do it every month. So
Yeah,
right. It's a little too much.
Well, plus the summer is probably gonna be
Yeah.
ideal, and so maybe doing something in the fall,
Yeah.
you know.
I think your answer is yes.
Yeah, okay, good. I'll let you continue. So thank you. Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye, thanks.
I'm going to move the agenda around just a little bit and talk about the ADU issue. which, we sort of came to a screeching halt about a month ago on this AD issue for a lot of reasons that people had. And but I don't want to lose sight of the fact that this is one of the issues that we think we should press forward. So I'd just like to ask the committee that how should we proceed? We vetted that meeting May 1st, gave a seven or eight slide presentation. There was some resistance to that idea. Also, there was a feeling that we had not really had a conversation about it in years yet. We came to a public meeting, we were telling people what we're going to do. So just asking, and please, everybody in the committee here, to just say where we think we should go with this. We can talk about this, we can schedule this a longer period of time. 17th, the meeting scheduled for 17th of June. 18th. Yes, yes.
It's a Tuesday. Yeah.
The 17th of July for the P and Z meeting. Planet Conservation.
We're all over the place.
I gotta get, anyway, on the 18th of June, we can start talking about it a little bit now, and see what issues we have. I think we all had Bennett's information, really covered the waterfront, we got everything in that. It was just a question of what we're gonna do with that. So, Francine, you were one of the people moving a little too quickly. I think Alex.
Okay.
Yeah, so just, what do you think, not the comments about the ADU, how do you want to do it, do you want to talk about it now? Put it off to the 17th, a little time, how do you want to?
I guess I would say it depends on how much other stuff we're gonna talk about.
How much what?
Other
How much
stuff we're
other stuff do we?
A lot of stuff.
There's a lot of stuff to talk about today, so I can do whatever people want to do.
Well, we want to decide how we're going to handle it, that's, we got to do that right now.
Okay, well, I do think we should all be able to give our opinion about the topic. So I don't know if you want to start that now and pick up again later, or
I'm perfectly happy to start it now, if
Okay.
everybody's really contributing, or do we need more time to think about the issue before we talk?
oh, okay, well, I don't need more time to think about that, but other people should.
So,
Chime in.
Peter and Anthony and Jane.
No comments. I just want to hear, you know, and I want to set some action of some sort. I mean, we can't just continue to discuss it. We've got to figure out what to do and do it in some fashion in some time. Maybe next year or whatever, but the thing that I came away with all of that was all the stuff that Eric worked on and made a very good report for, you know. But we've got to rezone for smaller or more square footage. One of the two, wasn't it? Was one of the hugest recommendations, you know, in there.
Yes.
I think one of the things that I kind of took away from the last meeting is that as a committee, we never had a discussion about accessory apartments or what our current regulations were, so that we're all on the same level playing field, so we know what we currently have and then moving on, what could options be to enhance that or encourage them or change them. So that was one of the things, and especially before you go talking to the public about that too,
Well, that's a
making
separate
sure
issue.
that the members feel comfortable understanding what they are. So I would throw that out there too, if you wanted to just have a general information session about accessory apartments and sort of how that falls in our current regulations, and then the changes that happened on the state level and how municipalities are approaching that. I'm happy to do that.
Erin, do you need a planning and zoning person, or you know that, you're good with that, right?
I have
Yeah,
that
you-
information, so I can share that.
Yeah.
Why don't we
With
do
you.
that?
That's
Let's meet-
helpful.
What are James' thoughts?
I'm with Erin on this. First of all, I apologize, but I had not read Eric's report. I was kind of confused as to why we were not prefacing it with some feedback as to what currently existed. And I know the idea was to expand ADUs to a bigger size, but then there are a lot of details in the regulation that people have to quite honestly understand. And I think that's the point that Erin is trying to make. So I'm all for this. It's kind of like a preface, you know, before we sit down and say, okay, here are some great ideas, but this is what we have.
So that sounds like we'll put this on the agenda for the meeting 17th, 18th.
No.
Oh, you look like you wanted to
No,
say
I mean,
something.
I had already said it before. I feel like we never did have a discussion at all. Yes, somebody was working on it, handed us several different drafts, and then eventually a final report. But the committee never discussed it amongst ourselves. What do we think? What are our individual opinions about ADUs and expanding size, owner occupied, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's a lot of things to it. It's not simple. So, yeah, I think that it deserves some attention from us.
Yeah, I mean, in order for you to get
And we
to
should
that
know what-
action
We should know what
item
our own
in the
regulations
plan,
are. Yeah.
So
You gotta
Erin,
kind
if you would then
understand the
be prepared
regulation.
to the next meeting that we will have
For
discussion.
the
and you can-
18th,
And 18th, and if you would either, if it's practical or not, I'm not sure. If it's practical for you, just send us the information in the zoning, exactly what it says about ADUs right now, so at least we have it. We can get that to everybody before the meeting, we can think about. Then we can have a discussion, meeting on the 18th.
yes, and I can do that. A lot of this information I already have prepared because the town had to make a decision back when there was, before,
To opt out.
in 2022, yes, whether or not we were gonna opt out from the state language. So we did a lot of this comparison already, had a slideshow presentation because it required both affirmative action from the Planning and Zoning Commission and also to be ratified by the Board of Selectmen. So we had to present to both
Mhm.
agencies. So I can share all that with you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And kind of let you know where we are. And then also the reasons why the committee or the plan writing committee added it in there as an opportunity for not necessarily that capital A affordable,
No,
but
we
some
understand.
type of housing
understand.
diversity, yeah.
Okay, so
To
that will
offer
be,
those
we will
smaller
schedule
units.
enough time to have a conversation about that on the June 18th meeting. And thank you, Aaron, for sending that ahead of time so we can have that. At least we'll know where we are today. And you might add any other, since you were at that meeting when the board of selectmen decided not to, or decided to opt out, any commentary that you remember from that, why were people thinking this was a better idea? Was this an idea to postpone this to a later date when more consideration could be given? Was it, there was other issues that people were bringing in?
A lot of it was to maintain control of our
Okay,
regulations.
let's put
That's
that.
the reason why, because once the statute, if you adopt the statutes and you don't opt out, then you are bound in the future by whatever happens
Sure.
on a state level.
Yep.
And there were certain parameters there that some folks may or may not, it was more of a concern what could happen in the future.
Okay, the next thing we'd like to talk about is Aaron and I had a conversation a while ago. One of the things she pointed out to me is that we should probably on a regular basis go back and look at what the original planning, the original affordable housing committee said in their report as to what we should do, which seems like a good idea. Thank you. So I have this here, which is basically all of the things. I'm gonna go through and read it. I'm not sure if anybody, has everybody read this recently? So they kind of remember what we were talking about? Got it. So I think let's just talk about what the actions, recommended actions are for implementation, and then who is responsible. So the first one was to formalize the Affordable Housing Plan Committee, a standing town committee charged with implementing the Affordable Housing Plan, and continue to work with the municipal staff, commissions, and stakeholders on housing initiatives. That has not happened. The Board of Selectmen is responsible for that. We are supporting the entities with the current affordable housing. And that is a high priority. Action number 1.2, designate an initial officer as the affordable housing point person and empower the coordination with other key municipal staff, particularly relative to oversight of affordable property transfers and the review of annual affordable plans. Again, the Board of Selectmen and town staff is working on that. And I don't know where that stands. Again, that's a year one.
Right. I would say that we've partially completed the committee because we went from an ad hoc plan writing committee to an actual, we wrote a charge for the affordable. You are designated as an ad hoc committee currently, but we did formalize a structured committee based off of that plan.
Why hasn't it become a standing committee? It's a year and a half.
I don't think it's specific for the affordable housing. I think it was more of a process of trying to group several committee charges together to.
Jane can answer that.
It's been a slower process. I think you're gonna have a half a year to adopt all the
Yeah.
committees by ordinance at this point.
Yeah, and then a lot of it, I think, was just trying to get the language for the charges of the committees consistent with one another. So it's been a bigger process. It's not specific to you guys. It's across, a span of making sure our language is consistent.
I know I brought 4
It's on the way.
committees or so
Yeah.
to the board. Some of them needed legal review because
Yeah.
they had other regulatory authorities and, the attorney's been in trial for a month and,
Yeah, well, that's.
those types of delays that are.
It's municipal government, unfortunately, we're just a little,
It's still,
the process is a little bit slower than.
it's still planning to be.
But it has to be done by the end of the year. That's the charter says they all have to be established
Right.
via ordinance within 2 years, so.
Action number 1.3 is develop an updated housing specific page on the municipal website, populated information, links to resources, town staff, and housing committee, and that's been done.
And speaking of that, can I ask a question? Because it kind of dovetails into.
Okay,
So you know how we decided, I guess, they've been encouraged that we put the ability for people to email us and ask questions. I think that it's a little problematic because, for example, did anybody, who's the person? Yes, so and so, yeah, Mark and I talked about this a little bit. I think it's impractical at the moment. The notion that somebody emails in from the public and, because there's not really a person designated to answer this unless it's,
Oh, that's,
is it, so you're gonna answer every question? Is that?
yeah, so far we got two, so
Okay.
I'm not, it's not overwhelming. We get to be a
Okay.
lot of.
Yeah, with other boards and commissions, typically it's the chair. You know, when I was on Board of Education, Seth Plaskin was the chair. Folks from the community would email in. A lot of times the email would come to the entire board, but
Okay,
only the chair can speak for
okay,
the committee.
all right.
And if I can't answer it, I mean.
Yeah, if you couldn't answer it, then, you know, we've got the resources, Aaron, Peggy's office, you know, there
Yeah.
are places that we could plug
Heather,
it.
Molly,
We're all-
and I are copied. We're all copied on
Yes.
those emails.
Then the next item is the promote the real estate and lending community, home buying funding programs through USDA, CHAFA, and other entities. And we are partly responsible for that, supporting that. I don't believe we've done anything. Have we,
No, we
Shout
just
out
had
to
a conversation,
Just with that.
with, Ben and the regional, the consultants, RKG, who are working on the regional plan update to see if we can,
the meeting we had yesterday?
yes, kind of structure this as a regional outreach, to
Okay.
lenders
So
and
it's,
real estate. If that doesn't
Pause,
pan
then it's
out,
probably pause right now
Yeah.
until they finish with their work.
but I have gone to, real estate, agencies, their, weekly staff meetings, or I don't know what they call them. I can't, the word's slipping my
No.
mind, but I've gone on a certain morning where all of the agents come in and check in, or they have a learning some type of training, things like that, to speak about these things. So we could do the same thing with, the town has a bank. We can ask our bank to come
Well,
and give some
what-
education
How can we
too.
help you? How can we help you, Steve? Want us to, sort of.
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll just look at, as we want to move forward, we can either do that individually and set that up as one of the community meetings, perhaps.
Oh, I was thinking of just sitting down with the real estate agents and talking about, why we think this is a good idea. To me, that's another way of reaching out to the public, because. when
What
they
is
come in-
the office in, there's one in Guilford, it's right on Route 1, there's a lot of, real estate.
Oh, it's
It's
Middlesex.
the New Haven, Middlesex Realtors Association.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a great entity to partner with, to be pulling in agents from all throughout the area that would be working in our area
How
to
does
do.
that work? Is that just their own company?
It's an association that the agents from New Haven and Middlesex counties have to belong to, so we pay fees for membership there to gain access to real estate data, such as the local MLS system.
And sometimes they do educational
do
events.
Oh, yeah, my wife,
Yeah,
my
they're-
wife is a
yeah.
member and she goes to training
Yes.
all the time.
Yes.
Our- yeah,
That
their
said,
building has-
with regard to financing and, there are agencies that are already associated with certain lenders.
Yeah.
Seems to be some tight knit relationships there. And, right now, with the limited amount of affordable housing, it almost seems a little bit like putting the cart before the horse.
Okay.
So it kind of, I could see if there was an overwhelming amount of affordable housing that we wanted to sort of create demand for. But I'm gonna guess those units on Cottage Road are probably already spoken for. And most people can find the information readily available. So I feel like you don't need to create more demand. The demand is already there. The products are there out in the marketplace and people are pretty much educated on it. And the agents, most agents will refer their buyers to lenders directly because it's
Yeah.
not their bailiwick to
Right.
be, quoting financial companies on what their terms and conditions are for certain types of loans.
And don't lenders, and correct me if I'm wrong, don't lenders need to oftentimes qualify through their own kind of
Yes.
continuing education in order to
Yes.
provide these types of loans? So do we know even how many lenders are qualified in our area to be able to service these types of?
Now, that's a good question. And maybe that's something that we need to research more, which banks or financial or mortgage brokerages are fluent in that area, because not all are.
It's not just the town of Madison, right? I mean, people might buy a house here and finance it through a bank in Wallingford or Hartford. I mean, our first house, we went to a different town and got a loan.
Yeah, that's a good point, Peter.
I think
Okay,
the
let's,
question is,
yeah.
one, do agents understand that when, if someone purchases a home and utilizes a chapel, that counts as an affordable unit in town? It's not just whether it's a deed restricted affordable unit or not.
I'm sorry, Mitch, repeat the question.
So say there's a house, it's not a deed restricted affordable, but it's a lowered price, you know, a home or a unit in the 200,000 range,
Mhm.
and the buyer qualifies for a CHFA loan, that unit counts as an affordable housing unit because of the lending source. That's
Yes.
the educational piece that we're
without being deed
trying
restricted, without being deed restricted.
to let agents understand that those, you know, if there's an option, you know, steering towards that type of a lender
Yes,
actually helps us increase our numbers, whether it's temporary, you know, for as long as they hold that mortgage or not.
yeah, people are pretty knowledgeable about the CHFA loans and affiliations. But to the point of which financial institutions are more efficient in it and maybe utilize it more, would be a good thing to come up with a list.
Yeah. Because that helps us increase our affordable housing numbers, even if they're,
I see what you're saying. Okay.
you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a deed restricted unit then.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
It's just because, you know, and those fall off over the years, but
But
gets
it's,
us
they help.
a
in the
little bit
short
closer.
term.
So I think
Yeah.
that was sort of where we were coming from for that.
Okay, well, I think
But
the
maybe
question
we have
is,
to
what
talk
is-
out
is-
how to do that.
We should be thinking about what we're gonna do, so we should have this conversation. Maybe if you could lead that, because if you could, you obviously have a lot of familiarity with these issues.
Yeah.
But we should really decide what we're gonna do, if we're gonna do anything. We are part of we're supporting this thing. So far, we have done nothing. The town has done some stuff. It does seem to me that having conversations with financial institutions as well as with the real estate agencies, that it helps us find out what questions people might be asking and getting some feedback from them, as well as making sure they understand what we're doing. For example, we can't have a Section 8 housing. For example. People can answer those questions. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does. Thank you.
I wonder if the banks are.
The next one is the 1.5 is the criteria for priority properties for development, redevelopment, work with staff and board of selectmen, outreach, opportunistic acquisition partnership. We are the primary responsibility. I don't believe it's a moderate and 2 to 4 years time frame. But we have.
We've been nosing around, we haven't
Well,
dealt with that issue.
yeah, I think that what we do have something going on with Jane and Francine, and working with Aaron to try to identify some town properties. That much we have. But in terms of setting priorities, what you want to talk about that, just what you're doing and where you are.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily, it's taking a step back and not necessarily identifying priority properties, but criteria and how you
Apply
are
that to- what are the
locating
criteria?
properties. And that's something that is going to, we're going to get some assistance on as well, on a regional level with RKG. So the consultant who assisted the municipalities in our COG on drafting our affordable housing plans, they've developed software where they can now overlay different parameters to start giving color-coded guidance on a map of opportunity areas that could work. And then you start looking at, well, is there water, is there septic, you know, things like that, but just general locations. It could be, we could set the parameters. It could be proximity to a train station, proximity to a bus line, specific zone, outside of flood zones, things like that.
And that could dovetail with what our newly formed facilities committee is working on as well, because they're looking at identifying all the town-owned properties, how they're utilized, if they're coming offline, or there are opportunities for redevelopment, sale, that sort of thing. But they would need to have, you know, if they want to consider affordable housing as part of that, you guys need to develop a criteria list for them to utilize as they're making their recommendations
And
as well.
that's where, okay,
You've
wait a
been working
second. I was gonna
well.
say, doing this a little backwards then, because
Well, I think they could run together.
okay, we, Jane and I have sat down and Jane knew which program to use to identify properties, town parcels. And then we sat down with Aaron to try and look at some basics, like there's all this, one by one by one.
But see, by doing
Came
that,
up
we're
with, like-
creating criteria
So
too.
Aaron
So I think
is-
it's working
okay.
well.
All right, I'm
Yeah.
just reading it wrong. Okay,
Yeah, so creating
we-
like a generalized criteria as opposed to like this parcel, like evaluating it. Right, left,
To
up,
your
down.
point, Jen, we should probably meet with the facilities
Yeah, I
committee
was just
to
writing that down.
see, to see if there's some overlap and to give them our ideas. But to the point that you're making, Erin, one of the things that Bob said, I think, which is, you know, the physical reality of things, is that he said, let the engineering dictate where you're gonna place your affordable housing, because there will be limitations based upon the type of soils and the ability of those soils to hold the septic system infrastructure. So I think we've already figured out we're more limited than we thought, because we had a whole pile of possibilities, and it's been
Now we-
dwindling
then we
down,
met-
and then we met with
Yeah.
Erin and she cut it in half.
But I think, so we looked at just very rough, what is this property? You know,
Where
pulled
is
it up
this?
on aerial photos. So trying to get a process to be able to present to the committee of here's the whole list, here's, you know, these are deed restricted open space. This is why that list doesn't come. And so there are a couple that you had some questions that both Jane and Francine had a couple questions on, and I was gonna get that back to you so that they can come back
Yeah,
to the
then we should-
committee and
We should meet some
Yeah, we should.
committee before we meet
Oh,
here.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, right,
because there might be,
And also they might know stuff we,
yeah,
because, you know,
yes.
well, it might be helpful to share with this committee where you've gotten so far to see if anybody else has any good questions to ask the facilities too.
Who's in charge of the facilities?
It's David Cadenas
Yes,
oh,
is the
I know,
chair.
I know.
yeah, very, very.
They just
very
started
good
meeting, what, a
facilities
month ago?
management. Yeah, maybe
Last
like,
month was their
I
first
think they've
meeting, I
had
thought.
2 meetings so far. I
So
think
they're very
that's only-
early
Yeah.
in, yeah.
Well, I think I think Aaron makes a good point. Let's have your report where you stand at the next meeting on the 17th, 18th.
Well, it might not be there because we
We're
have to
waiting
wait
for Aaron to come
Aaron,
back.
we've already met with
Aaron,
Aaron.
will
Well,
you
we
be
can
able to get the
include,
information?
yeah, we
Yeah.
can,
Are you sure?
we can bring it,
If you're
include
ready.
that, yeah.
Okay, so let's assume we're gonna
It's
do that. Then you can, I think you're right, talk to the facilities. committee. So obviously there's some overlap. Okay, the other one we were supposed to be supporting is the work of the estuary transit district.
Okay.
That is already well underway, so. that should be doing it there. Inclusionary zoning regulations for CGS 2I, including a housing trust fund or new municipal real estate here. Because we have worked with trust fund. I don't believe anything is being happening on the exclusionary zoning. So I think this is something where you have to work with these planning and zoning folks and learn more about what they're doing and.
Yeah, and you know, now that they're coming to the end with their POCD, they might have a little more bandwidth for that kind of stuff, because they had been really, you know, tied up with that project, so.
Yeah, Aaron mentioned that. I said we should basically leave them alone. For a while.
Yeah.
Now, this is the 2.2 modified current accessory dwelling units regulations, bringing in conformity with PA 29. We just talked about that. at the meeting on the 18th. consolidated, simplifying multifamily. So that's what's involved in it. Next one is make affordable multifamily development a priority for disposition and reuse of excess municipally owned property. And that's sorry.
I think you do play a role in all
No,
of
we're not
these,
involved in planning zones.
No,
even if it's just as a cheerleader.
ADU or an ADU.
So what do you?
Oh, you would say we're not involved in that, so we're actually.
Francine, I
No,
can't
not
hear you.
Peter,
Yeah.
Can you speak up, Francine?
We were, we were, Mark, we were just talking about the ones that don't have ADU.
Yeah.
And ADUs is one.
And I think what we have to do is put us on that list, so officially.
Yeah.
So we get to 3. So that's, we will edit the action report and say that we are supporting entity. Then next one, we have to make affordable multifamily development priority for the disposition, reuse of excess municipally owned properties. And we are on that.
That's kind of.
We're working on that, which you're talking about. You
Yeah.
guys.
And this predated the facilities committee.
Yeah. It wasn't the facilities. committee,
Right.
so,
Right.
Seek grants and matching funds to support housing for lower income properties. So, obviously, we've done nothing. It's ongoing and it's a moderate thing. We should think about what that means. It's how we participate in it. And then pursue partnerships with nonprofit groups seeking to develop in Madison, encourage pursuit of low income housing tax credit. And that's, I think, mostly, and please correct me if I think I'm wrong, mostly this is really learning about this and then conveying this information to the other parties, right?
Well, I think it's ongoing too. I mean, we
It
did
is.
that with the Wellington.
yes.
And then when we have the developers come in to have these conversations, you know, that's letting the developers know that we are welcoming to, you know, these affordable developments and partnerships and, you know, letting them see how we're functioning as a town. So I do think that's something that you guys have been actively.
Yeah, I think it's, but it's that in that case, we're not really doing, we're really learning and then passing it on to people who can do something about it, I think is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's that. And I think it probably is worthwhile, say once a month, updating this and making sure that we are still on track to continue to follow. Then the next thing we should be talking about is the draft plan of conservation and development. We've all received, I sent everybody a copy, if everybody has a copy. Recommend that we read it. And I think that we should be willing to have again a conversation 18th of June on that issue. So bring your questions or comments. And then I think we need to have a representation at the PNC meeting. Public meeting. It's a public meeting, is it, Jen?
All the PNC meetings are held.
Oh, they're inviting a larger group for this, present this plan.
For the
Is it just a
POCD?
regular PNC meeting?
Oh.
I thought there was a special.
This
meeting.
is the POCD public
Right.
hearing? Yes, it's on July 11th.
Yes.
It'll be here, a public hearing to allow for, and hybrid as well via Zoom.
And just for that subject, not a.
Yes, we're not bringing any other regulatory business to that meeting.
So the idea is that by the next meeting, we should be able to sit down and talk about. And I did took notes and believe what Francine took notes. And why don't we, Francine, you and I both send our notes around everybody, so at least you hear stuff that we talk about. So,
Yeah, I don't think there have been many changes to the affordable or the housing section in that over the last few months since you've seen it last. Yeah,
I didn't compare them, but I don't, it didn't look like it.
right.
The last thing I want to discuss is the working group, all of the working groups. And I think that we may have gotten off on at one point. Sorry, what's the word? The working groups, as I understand them, obviously this is the committee. As I understood them to be, was that they were to do the research between meetings separately to understand more and more what these issues are that we're dealing with, to report back that information to the committee, discuss it, or the committee to form a position on those items, whatever those items are. I think a problem with the ADU issue was that a lot of the work was being done, a lot of very good work. I think Eric did a great job. But it was not presented to the committee for discussion. It was presented as this is what we're going to do. And I think that became an issue. I think what Francine and Jane are doing is the proper way to do this, to do the research, come back and talk about it and figure out what we want to know about this. I think we talked in one meeting about suggesting the board of selectmen take a position, official position that all town land should be considered for housing before it's used for some other purpose. I mean, it can't be used for some other purpose. These are one of the primary considerations that land is reused. That is, the board of selectmen is not involved in every decision about that, so it's really just really expressing the town's position that we are looking for even places where we can use town land. So does anybody want to comment on the working group role, what I understand it to be, and maybe
I love you.
We have developed a very extensive and well-documented spreadsheet that addresses every issue around trust funds, and
let's take affordable housing is in one situation, having the ADUs in one situation.
and we're still talking about ADUs.
No, I'm just talking about the idea of having working groups work with the committee. So,
Well,
that's
we've done a lot of work, we need to present it to you. We need to.
It was one other part of the work. Too. Yeah, there was ADUs, trust funds, and then the third one, which I was assigned, which got shut down pretty quick, was to hire a housing authority. And then, initial research.
And then there's also the community conversations group. I want to jump in at some point because that relates. Go ahead.
Well,
And that's the spreadsheet we have.
we can speak to our spreadsheet at a scheduled part of the meeting.
Yes.
Because it's very, very informative.
One of the key things on this list is the trust fund issue. So I think we should look at some, sure, we'll do the presentation. Even though you have talked about it in the past, you think that we will presentation for next meeting.
We have a lot on the next
Yeah, we
meeting.
might want to talk
Here-
about how much we're doing.
And it is. And
One
we'll
thing,
see what happens.
one thing, Mark, that I think is important, and Ben is sort of alluding to that. Moving forward, I think it's helpful on the agenda to allow you to ask the working groups for weekly, updates. What is the progress on your working group? So we've identified what working groups we have, and maybe we reiterate that this evening to or this afternoon, just to kind of spell out what these groups are. Working groups are a great opportunity to get more work done, some side, busy research or communications with people, but ultimately to bring back to the committee so that all the discussions are here at the committee and no one feels left out, including the public or staff. So I think the connection to the housing working group, the regional housing working group that has been established even prior to this committee coming forward. I think it would be a good move, as Ben said, to treat that as a working group of this committee. So when there are times that I meet with Ben, with whether it's Peter and Mark, it's not an obligation that everyone from this committee has to be a part of that regional working group. But the point of that working group from the very beginning is how to facilitate more community involvement. So I think that way we report back at your meetings and everyone feels that they understand what the working group, that regional working group has been doing. And if there are suggestions or insight from other towns that they're having community meetings about this, that's a great time to kind of introduce you guys who aren't at those meetings too.
And so
If I can jump in just because I need to run in 5 minutes to go meet Bob in Wallingford. I agree absolutely with what Aaron,
he's still.
Can you hear me?
Longer than we promised.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. As Aaron said, I think it's a little, this is kind of like, in sci-fi, you call it retcon, right? Retroactive continuity, because we had that community conversations group going before the housing committee was seated. And I think this is a great moment to get clear about it. Like Aaron said, a working group, the way I think about it, whether it be about the trust fund or accessory apartments or about community conversations, the goal of a working group is exactly that, to do the work and then to propose a course of action to the committee. And then the committee makes the decision. And so the working group says, we want to have 3 community conversations over the next 3 months in these places. And then we submit that and we say, brings it back to the next committee meeting. This is what we want to do. We want the conversations to be about this. We want to be structured that way. And then the committee has a chance to say, well, actually, could we think about this date instead of that date, or that subject instead of that subject? Let's think about it this way, and then makes the final decision. So that the committee is the decision maker. And the people who, on one hand, as Aaron said, not everybody on the committee needs to be on every working group. So if you are not really interested in dealing with the nuts and bolts of how to plan a community conversation, you don't have to be on that working group, knowing that you will have final consultation over the decisions before it's made. At the same time, we can have people on the working group that are not on the committee who are interested in it. They're interested in planning it, interested in working on it, right? I'm not on the Madison Affordable Housing Committee. I hope I can stay a part of the Community Conversations Working Group. I hope we can bring more people in town who care about community involvement in the Community Conversations Working Group. They're involved in doing the work, and that work is still subject to a final decision of the committee. And then the committee, as Aaron suggested, would have an agenda item for each working group where the working group says, here's what we're working on. Here are the decisions that we want to propose that we want you all to ratify with any amendments or not, if you think it's a bad idea. And here are the ways we'd use help. So like, hey, we're doing this conversation. We need everybody to come and turn out their people or whatever. And then the last thing I'll say, and then I'll hush, is we have been on hold with the community conversations working group in the last month as we figure this out. And so I'm hoping by the end of the meeting today, the committee can approve this basic structure, and then we can get a date on the calendar for a follow-up meeting to talk about where we are, where we want to go next. And again, anybody who wants to be a part of that meeting is welcome. And anybody who doesn't want to be a part of that meeting will know that the things that we talk about and the decisions that we suggest will be ratified at the next committee meeting. So your voice will still be heard.
I mean, I guess I just want to, it might be a little semantics, but I guess what I thought I was going to say until just this last second, we used the word suggest, is that the working group, there will be a decision made, and then it will come back to the committee to say, here's the decisions we made. What do you think? I guess I would more expect.
I would say decisions would be proposed. We propose that we do this.
About that is more what I would be expecting as a committee member that's probably not going to be sitting in on escrow. I don't know, maybe it's.
Well,
just
so the
semantics.
the community group, or the community meetings group may say, well, May 15th might be a great date for that. Let's bring this, and so in that sense, yes, this would, trying to pick dates and or subject matters, that kind of a thing. And I also think that this group should probably have a running list of things that we want to talk about. So that we start.
So can I just, I don't mean this in any negative way. I just want to understand the structure and what's going on. I'm a little confused. I mean, there's a committee here. And so the meetings for escrow involve many towns. And so, right?
No, our working group is, I mean, it could have members of anybody, but currently is town residents.
Oh, you mean when you guys meet with escrow, it's only for Madison?
When we meet, we have multiple meetings. Yes, SCROG offers regional housing meetings where representatives from all affordable housing committees, they also have a regional planners meeting about housing that we meet more often with representatives from staff for each of the towns. And then we have our Madison group that is working with Ben specifically on how to help facilitate meetings in our community.
Okay,
Which is the
That's-
power.
That's the working
mapping.
group
Okay.
that we're
That-
talking about.
that I did not understand until right
Okay.
this minute. Okay, because I guess I had the impression that SCROG is having a meeting, and then a couple of people from our committee are there, and then decisions are being made, and then we're being, do you know what I mean? So I
No,
feel-
on
I'm
a
just going to
regional
the-
level,
So it's
no
not.
one's
It's
planning
just-
our local
It's just
meetings.
Madison people are now meeting with Ben.
Right,
to
so Ben
discuss the
came
form.
about
How's it
because
going?
of our regional opportunities with SCROG. SCROG has hired Ben as a service to municipalities who want to take advantage of
And,
his.
and the rationale for them, people from this meeting with Ben is to help us do a better job on our committee?
No.
So confused.
You're confusing me.
Yeah.
I thought I understood it. No, the idea, this is a community outreach. This is the stuff we did, public meetings,
Okay,
power mapping and all that kind of stuff. We did. We had an original meeting back a year ago and not everybody showed up.
oh, no, I
You
know
know,
that.
and we had, and that was continued. Ben was one of the big pushers of that. And he continued to be until he was. Peter was also.
So the reason you're meeting with Ben is because he's the person that's helping us do the community. meetings.
Facilitator.
Yes,
Okay,
he is
that's-
a
That's the
facilitator
goal. Okay.
that SCROG has hired and the town of Madison has decided to engage with Ben
Okay.
to help us
Okay,
facilitate
it's a singular.
community involvement.
And Stroud is a lot of other things that can be
So-
helpful to us.
That's,
but then-
that clears up a lot. So what you guys are discussing is how to get the stuff to the committee.
We're good, I
Right,
think.
yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
That was very confusing. I
Yeah.
thought it was more.
No, but Sprout does other things.
Yeah, I
We've been
knew, I already
invited
knew
to-
that. Yeah.
And we've been
that's-
invited to other meetings, but that's not the same thing.
Okay.
This is what we're talking about. Right now, as like you said a moment ago, I am the only remaining member of that group with the possible occasional peers involved. So I'm looking for someone to work with me on that, to be part of that. Anybody want to raise their hand now? Whisper in my ear later on. So, you know, one, okay, and there. So we got two, and I don't, this might have, we have five. You know, many people.
You can-
Better, more people.
Well, that clears up a lot. Thanks.
So right now, let's go through it. Anthony and I are now public exposure.
Committee.
Peter is working on trust funds, housing trust funds. Anthony is-
Pretty well done, though.
Okay, no, but I'm just talking about who's doing what work right now outside. You working on that, and Jane and Francine are working on to at least identify town stuff as well, but then also probably should be our liaisons and facilities committee. Both of you. As we learn more about what the facilities committee is doing, which is probably they're learning too.
Yeah.
So the last item I have is the public meetings. We did have one scheduled for May, we canceled that. Right now, we have no meetings scheduled. I think Peggy made a very good point. It's that we need to wait until fall before we try to do that. I'm not sure what the frequency of that should be. I think that we mentioned the monthly schedule was a little aggressive. We didn't want to put a monthly meeting, but perhaps some other things. Let's think about what that is.
You know, I think rather than just asking questions of these people and soliciting opinions, we need to give direction as to where our committee is doing. Here's some things that we're working on, a couple of decisions that we've made. And you can certainly comment on that with us because we love your participation. So here's where we're going.
I agree. I mean, in fact, we haven't made any decisions. So that's sort of.
That part's easy.
So we don't really have. But you're right. I mean, what I would think we should do is basically lay out things we're talking about and feedback.
Yeah.
And then we can sit down and take the feedback and figure out how we want to modify what our position is before we actually want to do it. We can say, okay, this is what we want. We are just.
Can I just say two things?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes.
The newsletter, I haven't done anything because I haven't really thought that I have anything to say. I don't, I feel bad.
Okay.
Drag it out. So it's not like I forgot about it, but I just
No, no, you haven't. We've been on a
it's just
hiatus
been,
for-
yeah, so I feel like probably just have to wait.
We're on a hiatus
Okay. And the last one, everyone got the news?
I'm on it.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So what are the dates?
Oh, what?
The minute, and minutes, oh no, it's for the minutes schedule.
Russ.
We have fewer people, I
Minutes.
have to redo the, who's taking minutes.
Oh, who's in charge of doing?
I sent it to
Thank you,
everybody.
Francine, that was good.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, we're having a meeting on June 18th instead of 19th, is that what we're doing?
Yes.
The
Yes,
19th.
June 19th.
Is it Hall's Day?
Juneteenth.
Okay. Is it here?
It's here.
And that's on the 18th.
Correct.
It's Tuesday. I got another item too, that I want to bring up. All right, before we adjourn.
Here.
We've lost 2 members, we're down to 5. Okay? And I've asked Bennett why, didn't get an answer. We don't know why Eric decided to leave, although I can suspect it's because of Valley Sports bankruptcy and his probably moving to a new job. I want to know if whatever anybody knows about why they left. And because this is hard on us, we became pretty good friends and pretty good associates, in this process. Hate to see them leave. Can we replace them? And if so, how?
Yeah, actually, there was a process.
We are in the process of replacing.
Who's we?
We don't replace Forrest unless there's one person who has been recommended. Gordon, who has applied, and board, we didn't choose ourselves, we were chosen by. the board.
Correct. So we can certainly recommend.
Every replacement for that, has to go through the board. So the same process we went through, they have.
Yeah.
So right now, we have one person who's applied, and that person was then approved by the board of selectmen, and the primary committee, as soon as they're approved.
How do you apply?
Yeah, in this.
Same way you
right
do
now,
it.
It's only online.
I don't believe an announcement has been made.
Yeah, usually there's an announcement in the paper.
Usually there's something on the town website.
Yeah, the town website.
There's openings for boards and commissions. There's an application process. If you're associated with a party, you would go directly to your party. Their nominating committee, who would, vet out the applicant and make a nomination to the Board of Selectmen. If you are unaffiliated, then you can apply directly to the Board of Selectmen.
Online. at the town.
We didn't go through the parties.
Yeah.
No, for the initial
That's
appointment of the committee, that's correct, but this is how
that's usually,
So what
members
we're-
are appointed.
What we, I mean, I have no opinion of the board of selectmen to approve this person, but let's assume they do, so we are looking for one person. What we need to do, all of us at the committee, is to see, do we know anybody that, might be a good candidate, and then encourage them to apply.
And I actually did, he actually stood up at the big meeting. Remember the guy, his name was Philip Cumberland or something like that?
Chamberlain.
Chamberlain, is that it? He stood up and talked about he has rental units and.
Yeah, he said.
Okay. I heard he was interested.
Well,
I don't know. Is he?
point of view, it's a different point of view.
Oh, yeah, different point of view.
In his own point of view, I'm not
it's
sure
very,
he's interested in his own issue, or about at least we're hearing from him. So, we talked for a long time about it. There was subdivision in the house and creating apartments.
Well, I'm gonna ask Vance Taylor to apply. He's the guy that came and talked to us once and brought a developer in from Georgia to talk to us about affordable housing.
Well, I was gonna say, and we should,
Anybody.
we should encourage people that we know to apply.
To apply.
And when they say, let's assume one person is on the, in a forum, at least 2 to 5 people working there. We have 4 people to make.
A meeting.
So all, try to go out of your way to make meetings.
isn't it, would it be? two
Thank you.
thirds?
And I move we adjourn.
You still have public comment.
I'm sorry?
You still have public
We
comment.
still have public comment.
We never forget public.
Absolutely. Oh,
No, that's okay. I'll keep it brief because, well, for the chair, it's ready.
And now, are there any public comments? Oh, gosh, okay, Alex, you
I'll keep this brief and just some of the topics that we talked about today that you guys talked about, see if I can read them. But with these public sessions, Madison, Guilford, the area has so much talent. I've mentioned this before. Imagine if instead of just targeting the general public, we could go after Duo Dickinson and Matt Williams and local architects, Russell Campaign from Guilford. You mentioned banks, you mentioned churches. affluent people that want to donate money to, and see and call us, great lumber yards in town, Landon, and now Rings End. But imagine working sessions all that night instead of, that had a purpose, and you could invite these people to attend and have the spirit of a barn raising, trying to use local talent. And regard, I mean, you're a realtor and you have insight. Imagine if you had colleagues and instead of just specifying a public event where people are gonna have opinions, we had working sessions, but with the public. And you guys mentioned that, but the churches was a great idea. Invite them in and have it in the evening. And you need more time than an hour, because I think everyone feels rushed. But see if we could get somewhere using what we have in town. It's great to have people from out of town come in, but no one's gonna care about us more than.
Clergy do have a sort of unofficial organization that we spoke at. So we have already engaged with the clergy, churches and synagogues. But we have not, we've not gone back to, we're saying is, why can't we build in your backyard? And I'm not even sure. Well, that's a different. Well, he suggested that.
And you have Aaron with, knows all the land.
5 acres, right?
But instead of canceling these public sessions, keep going with these sorts of things. I mean, even if you got a room full of 10 local people, landscape architects, you have.
Yeah, no,
all
I
this
think,
talent here.
not a bad idea. Do it in the evening. Everybody can come along.
Anyway, thanks again for volunteering.
Do we have your contact info? You might be interested in helping us plan some of this. I love these ideas.
Alex, we know him. Yeah.
Got him. We know where to find
Yep.
him.
You might know
Awesome.
before you want to know.
Okay, so unless there's any further questions or any other comments, we will adjourn at 12 minutes before 6.
I second the motion.
Ben, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, everyone.
Absolutely. Great to see you all.
Have a good meeting
Alex,
tonight.
Alex.
Thank you.
Vince.